child, whether they know it or not, whether they know God or not, worships something. Whether it's a football team, a band, or even their partner. But as Christians, we follow Christ. That's what being a Christian is, it's to follow Christ. But has anybody ever asked you, or have you ever thought about, why it is Jesus that we worship and not just God? In John 1:18 it says, "No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known." John's referring, of course, to Jesus Christ, who is the subject of his gospel and indeed of the whole Bible. How can Jesus make God known? How can he do what no religion has ever done and what no other person, past, present, or future, can ever do? Verse 18 is the conclusion of the entire introduction to John's Gospel, which explains why Christians worship Jesus. These verses give us a sevenfold description of the unique glory of Jesus Christ. He is the eternal, personal, divine, creating, life-giving, incarnate Son of God. I was going to run out of fingers there. Number 1, eternal. John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word." It doesn't say, "In the beginning was God, and no one has ever seen him or made him known." It says, "In the beginning was the Word." What this means is that God speaks. It's often been said that all religions are like blind men trying to describe an elephant. One blind man gets hold of his tail and says, "The elephant is like a long, thin rope." Another blind man gets hold of his trunk and says, "No, the elephant is like a long, flexible tube." And the third blind man stands next to the elephant and says, "I don't know what you lot are on about. An elephant's like a big wall of leather." Those who want to critique the faith tell a story like this. And they say, "No one has ever seen God. We are like blind men trying to describe an elephant." A good response to this story is, what if the elephant could speak? What if the elephant could say, "Let me tell you who I am. I am a very complex animal with a trunk, a body, and a tail. Listen to me, you blind men, and I will tell you who I am, and then you will be able to make sense of your experience. In the beginning was the Word. God speaks, and he has made himself known. Otherwise, we would never be able to know him." Number 2, personal. Again, John 1:1 says, "The Word was with God." The Word is not simply an aspect of God or a characteristic of God, like his mercy or his love. There is a distinct personality here. That's why John goes on to say, "All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made," in John 1:3. We are bumping up against the most marvellous, complex doctrine of the Trinity. Number 3, divine. The Word was God, also in John 1:1. This Word is a divine person. He is not part of the creation like the angels or ourselves. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Distinct personality and divinity. You find the same thing in verse 18, where it says, "He is the only God, and he is at the Father's side." Number 4, creating. All things were made through him. That's from John 1 verse 3. The creation gives us some knowledge of God. Romans 1 verse 20 says, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world. In the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." Why is that? The creation is God's handiwork. It was made by him, and it contains an impression of the one who made it. Number 5, life-giving. In him was life. That's from John 1:4. J.I. Packer is a theologian, I think he was an English Canadian. He died in 2020, but he sums this up better than I can when he said, "Here is the Bible's answer to the problem of the origin and the continuance of life in all its forms. Life is given and maintained by the word. What he's saying is, what makes me alive? The question should be, who makes me alive, sorry. No, the question isn't what makes me alive, it's who makes me alive. Acts 17:28 says, in him we live and move and have our being. Number 6, incarnate. The word became flesh and dwelt among us. That's from John 1:14. The baby in the manger that we celebrate at Christmas was the eternal word of God, and he was called Emmanuel, God with us. And finally, number 7, Son of God. John 1:14 says, the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory as the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. So why do Christians worship Jesus? Because he was at the Father's side from the beginning. He is the one and only Son. He has come down from God. He is God with us, and he has made the Father known. Jesus is the eternal, personal, divine, creating, life-giving, and incarnate Son of God.